Friends, now we are going to be Indian Communist Party going to reach this year 100 years. There are many veteran leaders and communists are part for the changes, social changes and social revolution for the Indian revolution. So we are now going to be interview one of the most important veteran leader. Is reaching now from 18 years to still 82 years. Now he is reaching 82 years. He is fighting for the Indian Communist Revolutionary upside. So you can start from what is your, how you early life and how you enter into the Communist Party. Louder.
Louder. I was born in 1938 in a poor peasant family. We had a small plot of land which was actually submersible during the rains.
Okay, go on.
So, my father had to go for, he had a pair of bullocks. So he was actually going for plowing the land of others or taking some land on the sharecropping conditions from others and cultivating. That way we had a subsistence economy in our family. So it was a poor family, we can say. And we had 2 meals a day with difficulty. But one good thing at that time, we had a high school nearby. But earlier it was also difficult because the high school was about 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers away. So my brother had to walk 10 kilometers every day to and fro, 10 kilometers to the school and then 10 kilometers back every day to complete his 10th standard. So when he completed the 10th standard, after trying so many, making so many efforts for an employment, he got a job as a conductor in the Kerala State Transport Corporation bus.
Which year?
Yeah, he got a job as a conductor, my brother.
Which year?
That was maybe in 52 or 53. So, and that became a big help to us, that because the regular income. So, by the time the high school came, high school was started near our place, so we could go to the school and for lunch also we can come back and take some food and go back. So it was nearby, 1.5 kilometers. And so things became easier, but still we were in a very poor condition. And so I completed my SSLC by 1955. And meanwhile, when I was a 7th class student sitter at that time, an elderly boy in the school, he talked about AISF, All India Students Federation. That boy's elder brother was a member of the CPI. And so he knew about the AISF and he discussed with me and other students. So we should have a AISF group unit here. By the time I had started so many things, though when I was in the 7th standard itself, I had started going to the library. There was a library in our place, and one of our distant relatives was a secretary of the library, and that was a very good library. And this librarian was very much influenced by left politics, Marxist ideas, and he was unemployed youth but devoted to this library work. So he used to get lot of books, and this library was a very rich library. So I could start reading when I was in the 6th standard itself. I started becoming a regular visitor to the library, started reading the periodicals, then I started to getting the books. and he used to guide me to which books to take and other things. So naturally, and another thing about living conditions. Living conditions at that time, the village structure is, it has not fundamentally changed now, but some changes are taking place now. But the village structure is, up to one point, there will be the Nayar families. Nayars are Sudras family. Then the Iravas families will be there. Then after that, near the submersible paddy land area, there is upper Kutanad we say, the Deris will be there. Yes, scheduled caste Pulayas. So that way the caste structure is reflected in the way the people were living also.
Yeah.
But my house was the southern extreme of the Nayars families.
Yeah.
So then the Irava family started, and little distant away the Pulaya families were there. So I had more friends among the downtrodden sections at that time itself.
Yeah.
Casteways also. More than going to the other area where the Nayar boys are playing. So I used to play with other boys. So I had a very good relation with them. So I was understanding this. I was understanding the social differences, the caste difference, and how people are talking. And when I started taking some small little bit of food or a tea in a Pulaya house, or in my early age, my mother and father were comparatively liberal. And my father was always eating and taking some toddy also with the other agricultural workers and poor persons. So that way he was not a casteist at all, my father. So my mother also that way became liberal. So, but still they used to say, others would criticize. Others used to criticize why you are going to those houses, taking food and other things. So I want to say all these things actually played a role in forming, developing my understandings and other things. And when I was a high school student, I started reading Rahul Sankrityayan in Malayalam and some Marxist books. Then one K. Damodaran has written very beautiful books, small books in Malayalam, explaining various aspects of Marxism. So I could read these things. So by when I was a ninth standard student, I presented a paper on five-year plans and Soviet Union and other questions in the school. Because school at that time, every Friday evening, there will be one literary session will be there. That was arranged in the schools. So I presented a paper, and some teachers also helped. So that way, all this, the librarian, the teachers, my readings, the environment, all these things actually helped in forming my character and my class approach. So I became in that way, you can say, all these things influenced me to become a communist human being. So I became active in ASF, naturally, in this process. And when we were in the 9th standard, at it was 11th standard, up to 11th was there. SSLC, secondary school living was in our area, 11 years we had to complete. Yeah. So when we was in the 10th standard, 10th standard, there was a problem. On August 15th was celebrated, the headmaster wanted to celebrate the August 15th in the school with the panchayat, along with the panchayat president and others. The panchayat president is in a way my uncle, but he is a congressman. So I started hating Congress, criticizing Congress. So naturally, we said, I was actually leading the ASF. So we said, no, we will not allow a joint celebration of August 15 with Congress Panchayat President. We should do it independently. Then headmaster said, no, we will do that way. Then he said, we will boycott it. So if you boycott it, you will be thrown out of the school. He threatened us, all of us. And on August 15th, all of us reached their school. And when the Congress Panchayat President started speaking, we started going out. All the students walked out. The hall became empty, except for some Congress people. So there was a big rebuff to the Congress leadership and the headmaster also. And the headmaster actually at that time the drill master will be there. And the drill master will even give cane charging to even tell students up to SSLC also. So that was there. So that type of punishment system was there. And so headmaster called my father. I said, sir, he's a rebel. He's did this thing. So I will be throwing out of the school. Then my father and requested him not to do it. We are in a poor family. So we are having so many expectations from him. So that way he upgraded, but no, nothing will be. Then he asked me, if I had not done a wrong thing, I said I did a correct thing. So if you throw me out, you can throw me out. But they did not do anything like that. Because I was the brightest student in the school. So naturally, it would have been all the teachers opposed it, taking any action against me and other people. So headmaster had to retreat, and nobody was punished. I said, if anybody is punished, we will again strike. So no action was taken. So that was the first struggle in our life.
Yeah.
And then this SLC examination, I got a very good marks without anything. I was doing all these things, but I was attending to school, and I wrote without any help, any tuition or anything. So, but I got very good marks. I was in the first 100 people in the state.
Yeah.
And so in the school, for a long time I was having still I think at school, my mark is the record of those days. Now the system has changed.
Yeah.
So that way I passed SSLC with good marks. What to do? My family cannot afford to go for higher education. So my brother was a contractor. He was at Alappuzha, that is the coastal area. And I went there. And he was staying in a lodge. So I went there, and actually I wanted to take him because I had seen that they are recruiting people for Air Force. So I wanted to take him with me to go to Ernakulam for an interview. Then I had taken the certificate also with me, and then his friends saw it. All of them started criticizing my brother. Why you are taking to Air Force and other thing? Put in the college. Put the college here, and you can stay here with your family and your mother, and some arrangement can be done with your wages. Something can be done. Let him go for college. Don't go send him to Air Force. So he said yes, we will do that thing. So we took a small house there, and my mother also went there, and we stayed together. And I went to the college, SD College, MP. And there, of course, though I am coming from such a poor conditions, I had to study and become something big as my family expected. I became fully involved in the student politics, and then actually with the outside also. I had contacts with outside and Communist Party. Alappuzha was the center of the communist movement.
Oh.
And P. Krishnapillai's center. Then Kayar workers struggle, Punnapravailar took place in that area. So it was actually having that lot of that leftist atmosphere was there. And so I was influenced by all these things, and I became a very active in the student politics as well as in the party work also. And we are involved in many struggles at that time. At that time there's a detention system, selection system, and no proper democratic atmosphere in the college union, university union. So many problems were there. So we started struggling against that. So students struggled, so many struggles, and we actually closed the college for days, and we picketed the principal and our teachers. So that we stopped the college for days to remove the selection and detention and for more democratic rights to the college union. And we succeeded. So at that time the opposition was KSU, Kerala Students Union, the Congress led Kerala KSU, but we were dominating them, and we had a lot of ideological struggle, political struggle. For example, I was taken the first group. At that time it was intermediate. We were the last batch of intermediates. Then the the PSCs, but the pre-secondary, pre-university system, PUC system came.
Yeah.
So in that group, Vailar Ravi, who was a central minister and a big Congress leader, MP for a long time, he was also there. So we were in the same, always sitting the same bench and arguing. So we contested the election next year. That was in the 56, 57, there's school class representative. And I defeated Vailar Ravi. So I won. So that way, as ASF won the college union. And that way, we were having a lot of political campaigns and other things. At that time, the 57 election took place. And 57 election took place. And so, naturally, skipping the college and skipping studies, we had to go for election campaign.
Yeah.
And we went for election campaign. 56, I became a party member. And I was active in the party fraction, ASF party fraction. And top leaders used to come and take classes and everything. So we had a good interaction. And I was reading more books, Soviet books, Marx, Engels, Lenin, and something of Mao also I started reading. So that way, library was very helpful. There was a private library also nearby. So that library also became helpful. So that way, a lot of reading was there. I was reading all these things, International Communist Movement, Indian Communist Movement, and then this party fraction work and party fraction discussions and interaction with these students who are influenced by Congress politics. So that way, then this election came. And election we campaigned, even skipping classes and study, we campaigned. And that seat also was won by T.V. Thomas, who became Chief Minister, one of the top leaders of Communist Party at that time. And then the majority was there, and the ministry was going to be formed in May. By that time, I had completed my intermediate examination. Though I skipped colleges and study for election work and other thing, I got very good rank again in the intermediate. So again, I was something like within the first 100 in the state. So then what to do after it is completed? So meanwhile, there was a advertisement for this Indian military, that is a selection. So there was an examination in Chennai. So I went alone. My family and brother was worried, can you go? I said, I'll go. So I got the address in Chennai, and I went alone for the examination. I wrote the examination. I stayed in that Everest Lodge that time. Everest Lodge. Long,
that I know.
Yes. It's a lodge. I took a room there. Somebody told me, I just searched out and I went there, I stayed there. I went to the, and I wrote the examination. Examination I wrote very well, but my writings were communist. Because for example, there was at that time Mossadegh rebellion was there in Iran. So they asked about Mossadegh, Shah. So I thought Mossadegh is a great revolutionary. And so I denounced US imperialism. So naturally, though I wrote very well, I did not get selection. But that also helped. Otherwise, if I had gone to that line, it would have been bad. So then what to do? And I completed this thing. Then engineering college admission. At that time, there was no entrance examination directly. So I applied for it. So I got the call. So I went to Trivandrum alone. Some of our distant relatives are there. I stayed with them, went to the interview, and I got selection. I became in the engineering college. But how to, expenditure is there. I got the admission to the hostel also. Hostel expenditure, college expenditure. Then luckily I got a scholarship. And my brothers, he used to give about, he could manage to give 50 rupees per month plus the scholarship. With that, I somehow completed this engineering college and engineering college. And in the engineering college time, I was became very, my membership was transferred to Trivandrum. So I was in the one party local committee, and and in the students fraction also. There was and I got elected as a ASF district president, and the state committee also. So I was very active, unlike other engineering college students. At that time, engineering college there was union was there, but no parties were allowed, no students organizations were allowed. So it was atmosphere. But still we started becoming active in the union. We forced many discussions in the college, and when Lumumba was killed, we forced the college to stop the classes and then convened a meeting in the college committee itself, denouncing the American imperialism and solidarity with Lumumba and the liberation fighters in Africa. So that way we were trying to create the atmosphere in that. So there was a political atmosphere. There was a big struggle, and our principal was a very orthodox Catholic, K.C. Chaco, very simple. So very orthodox Christian, very orthodox, fundamentalist. And so he called me once, I will throw you out of the college. I said, if you want, you can throw me out of the college, but you have to follow the rules. You have to follow the rules, and I am not violating any rules. As a student, I have got the democratic rights. I am doing that only. And I am participating in the political struggle. It is my right. As a citizen, I have got the right.
Yeah.
So that way, and some teachers were also supporting me.
Yeah.
And some good number of students were supporting me. So we used to have so many discussions on 5-year plan and so many other things. And in a college day, Communist Party had a cultural troupe at that time, KPAC. It had actually brought out so many very good political dramas.
Yeah.
And stage dramas, 3-hour, 4-hour stage dramas. But it was influenced by the party's line. The reformist line was there. So, but still they were very progressive. And with the supporters, forced the union to invite one of these dramas to be staged for we wanted to collect some funds for the union. So we got in the nearby theatre, we got a stage for the students, we collected funds, and that was a very good drama.
Yeah.
And New Horizon, new Earth, New Horizon. That is a new Earth, New Horizon. Good idea about socialist new world it was putting forward. So that way it was a big struggle in the college. And at that time, now I will come to this thing. So these courses, I will, my life became more and more political by that time.
Yeah.
So at that time, I started reading Mao. So I got 4 volumes of Mao and I started reading. And Marx, Engels, Lenin, there is some Stalin's books, history of the CPSU and other things. Then I started reading Mao also. And then I was reading the Communist Party history also. In 57, when the ministry was formed, that is my first year. I had just reached Trivandrum. On the first governor's speech in the assembly. So we were asked ASF leaders and all, we got the passes from the MLAs and we were in the gallery.
Yeah.
The governor was giving the speech. Governor said, our government, my government, will implement the welfare policies and the progressive policies which are not implemented by the Congress government. We are not going to implement we are not, as somebody is alleging, we are not going to implement communist policies. So, at that time we became very agitated. Why so? Because Lenin is saying that parliamentary struggle should be used for developing class struggle. So we have to put forward our ideas and then try to implement them. And if there is a problem, we should struggle and the parliamentary struggle should be turned into a political struggle.
Yeah.
Why we are saying that way? So then we thought we should be shout slogans. No, we will not shout slogans. We will demand a explanation from the leadership in the party fraction. So in the very evening, we went to the district committee office and asked the district secretary. He was very friendly with us, and a fraction meeting should be there, urgent fraction meeting. And meeting was there, and the district secretary himself was attending the party fractions at that time. So we was comrade V.S. Risa, was very elderly comrades, understanding Marxism. We said this speech itself, we have got criticism of this speech. This speech is reformist. It is not Marxist. Lenin says parliamentary struggle is for class struggle. But he says EMS, the cabinet led by EMS has prepared a speech which is read by governor, which is saying that we are not going to pursue the communist policies, but we will go for only welfare policies. It's not reformist. So we wanted discussion. Then he tried to explain. He said, I also have some criticism. He was joining with us. I got some criticism. But as a government within the ruling system, if we say anything more than that, they may take action. Then we said, what is the problem? That is what Lenin said. In Duma, Lenin said this thing.
Yeah.
He called on the Duma people to revolt. And if necessary, you have to fight in the Duma. And they fought, and they were actually exiled to Siberia.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle. So naturally, we are not expecting that we can continue this government. Let them dismiss the government. So again we will go to the people. That is a struggle. No. No. So we will, no, that will be dangerous. We should adjust. So he tried to explain, but he himself was not convinced. Then we were not convinced. Then we started taking it in a bigger way. When the land reforms bill came, the question became very more sharp. Though we were very young, 18, 19 years, so we took up some senior students also were there. All the ASF comrades, senior students also, who were studying in MA, other things. So we became almost same idea we had. So we said this party is taking a reformist position because the party has called for two important things. Land to the tiller. In 1956, when Kerala, the United Kerala came into existence, the United Kerala committee was formed, party's committee was formed. So in that committee, a resolution was passed. So if our party comes to power, we will implement radical land reforms with land to the tiller as the basic approach, and we shall nationalize all the foreign plantations because there are large number of foreign plantations in Kerala, and eastern region, more than 50% or 75% of the land was actually occupied by these plantations, big plantations. And foreign plantations are continuing through their binamis.
Yeah, that I understand.
And so Communist Party had called for their nationalization.
Yeah.
But in the land reform bill, which came in 58, it was not there.
Oh.
And actually the structure was the landlord, feudal landlord, tenant, worker, the agriculture worker. These three layers is there.
Yeah.
So landlord will be upper caste, mainly Brahmin, that upper caste people. And the tenant will be the middle section, these Nayars, Yadavas, then Christians, that way, the middle section. And the tiller is actually mainly Dalit, Adivasi and the most backward sections. So instead of making the land reform in such a way that the land goes to the tiller and a radicalization of the land relations can take place.
Okay, you go.
Instead of doing that, they made a reformist approach. And later we came to know, at that time we were not knowing, later we came to know, actually EMS ministry was following the directives of the central government, which was influenced by the Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, who are calling for new land relations in the agricultural sector so that imperialist capital and machinery and pesticides, chemicals, everything can enter.
Oh.
There was actually in 50s, these directives were there from these American think tanks.
Yeah.
That in order to, the feudal landlords, it was a closed thing. So the agriculture was a stagnant thing. So after the Second World War, the neo-colonization started. The imperialists wanted to enter the agricultural field also with their capital, technology and materials. So they wanted to change the landlords who were feudal to progressive landlords,
Yeah.
who will accept the capital and the technology. So ceiling laws, it was a directive, the ceiling laws should be implemented. Ceiling laws should be implemented. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So that was and later we came to know, now it is very clear, all the documents are before us. And 1950s first part itself, these directives came from American imperialism and United Nations and other agencies, UN agencies, and it was Nehruvian policy was influenced by that, and Nehru model was that thing, and Nehru government gave the instructions to implement the ceiling laws to create a new landlord class who can open the agriculture to imperialist capital.
Yeah.
So the same thing was being followed basically in the EMS ministry land reform also in 58. But so what we said, that the party had asked for nationalization of plantation lands, foreign lands, and land is a tiller's law. Why you are going away from that thing? So that's a criticism.
Take break.
It's okay.
Okay.
You are getting the record.
Two things. For one thing, you're getting the record in the camera. Another thing in the sound also.
Yes.
Because it's most important. We are discussing. Yeah.
You can take some of these things to adjust that.
Yeah, I will take.
Anything you want. And take this also to adjust. So that pen you can use that. Time the struggle, we were actually struggling at the different levels. On the one hand, as a student from a poor family, I have to concentrate in the studies so that I can complete my studies and get a job to help my family. So that is one thing, aspiration of the family. But forgetting all these things, of course I was a good student, I was studying, attending the college and studying, but other times, all other time I was used for struggles and campaigns and other things. So different levels. One is within the college itself, engineering college itself, we had formed a team at that time. We made a party members team, and a party fraction was formed in the engineering college itself.
Yeah.
No union is allowed, but we made a communist fraction within the engineering college. And within the engineering college, for a radicalization, we started studying. second thing, as ASF activist, I was a district president, and then later I became a leading member of the state committee also. In the state conference, I was elected as a leading member of the state committee also. So, in that way, as a ASF activist, we were active in the students' field. Though CPI ministry was there, the education was in the hands of the reactionaries.
Yeah.
And so they were imposing so many restrictions on the students, we were struggling in that area. And for education reforms and other thing. And we took up a question, this University Youth Festival was there.
Yeah.
All India University Youth Festival was there because there were some problems which erupted. In Bangalore University Youth Festival in 1944 or so, it was cancelled by the central government. But we wanted that it should be restarted.
Yeah.
University Youth Festival should be restarted. So the students in the different university can have a contact with each other. And that level struggle was continuing. And third level, at the political party level, we were actually collecting more and more students, leaders and activists to our line that the party is taking a reformist question. And then actually the leadership was in a difficult position. They had to explain, and finally they said, this is to protect the ministry. As then we said, why you, whose purpose you are protecting the ministry? And so, by that time itself, Congress had started opposing the ministry, uniting with the caste organizations, religious organizations, and American imperialism had come out with against the ministry. Though the ministry was reformist, for us it is a reformist, but US imperialism had come out, and some US funds started coming. When I was approached by some agents of this KSU and others, that you can go to a foreign trip. So I said, I don't want to go to foreign trip and other things. So we are happy with the struggles here. So we denied that thing. So that way, a penetration was taking place in the students' movement everywhere, and with American funds and other thing, and some religious institutions, especially Catholic religious. Catholic agencies were very active in that thing.
Yeah.
At that time, the NGO system was not there. Religious institutions were there. So many front organizations of religion, they were active. So we said, how are you going to protect the party? Already there is a rebellion mounting against the ministry from the reactionaries. But the party, government was not ready to accept this reality. Unfortunately, government was not ready to accept the reality. So what happened? By 1959, just after 2 years, the ministry completed 2 years only. Ministry completed 2 years only. What happened? The Indira Gandhi started camping in Kerala. And under the leadership of Indira Gandhi was the Congress president at that time.
Yeah, that time.
And under the leadership of Indira Gandhi, all the religious organizations, caste organizations were mobilized.
Yeah.
And even funding was there, including foreign funding through Catholic agencies and others. And Muslim League also was taken into the grouping. And all these people got together and they made a broad front led by the Nair organization leader, Mannathu Padmanabhan. So they started a liberation struggle against the ministry. When this liberation struggle was started, so they wanted some martyrs. See, this RSP, RSP was actually, though they called themselves a left party, at that time they took a position against it was anti-CP. And they started acting against this ministry. And they created a problem in Kollam, and in a cashew nut factory. And the workers became violent. And instead of understanding the problems and solving the problem peacefully, the police fired.
Oh.
So because the Congress had agents in the police also. So police fired and two workers were killed. So 2 martyrs were there. So communists say that they are workers' party and they are killing the workers. And this liberation struggle started, and some other places also, fisher people. There was a violent demonstration by fisher people led by the police. And firing was there, 1 woman was killed. That way, 3-4 people were killed, and all using all these things, that big violent this was a campaign was organized. It was attacking all the progressive people. Wherever we wanted to go forward with a red flag, so they were attacking. And it was very dictatorial approach was taken by the Congress leaders and these forces, and the attacks were there. So finally, Jawaharlal Nehru came, and he just asked explanation from the state government. So instead of taking a political position, we were very, we were surrendering to Nehru's personality. And so the state government and the party leadership could not take a bold position against these things, because we had the majority in the assembly.
Yeah.
So we could have taken that question and we could have fought. By the time all India level against this liberation struggle, some reaction was coming up. So utilizing this thing, we could have come against the central government, but we were meekly surrendering, and the ministry was dismissed.
Yeah.
Then we told the leadership, our party faction, party leaders who are attending the party, what happened? You are doing reformist policies to save your ministry, but the enemy is very sharp. So enemy has finished you. So what will you do? Election. And during the election, 1960 elections, what happened? Actually, they attacked the Dalit areas. In southern Kerala, there are some Dalit areas, Dalit dominant areas, and they attacked and killed people and terrorized and prevented them from voting. And they used everything, all dirty tactics. They called on the people from the religious places, especially churches and Muslim with this thing. At that time, the temple, that thing was not there at that time, because temple was not under the influence of these religious fundamentalists. The temple was a very liberal thing at that time. And so it was a decentralized thing also. But these Christian and Muslim leaderships, religious leaders, are calling for hosting the ministry, and now vote for an alternative. And 60 CPI was defeated, and the alliance led by Congress got majority, and they formed the government. And but still, one thing is there: 46% votes CPI got.
Oh, that time.
So it was an important thing that in spite of all these things, that is about 15% more votes than 57. We got 15% more votes than 57. So that's an important thing. We said it is a good thing that people are with us.
Yeah.
So the class struggle should be carried forward. But after 60, there was a struggle. The struggle was taking place at the all India level, and the reflection was there. We were not understanding all those things. So what happened? The whole state leadership, whether it is left trend or right trend in the party, all actually became very weak, and the resistance against the rightist line was not taken forward. So many of us actually had decided, even though we are coming from poor families, we will become whole-timers. That was our understanding. But with this development, we thought, unless and until there is a change in the line, it will be meaningless to become whole-timers now. So we have to wait and struggle, do our ideological struggle. That will be better, and we have to study more, ideologically more, and equip ourselves.
Yeah, that is.
And so by then I became the University Union president also. I was elected. That was actually all the colleges unions. So elected, I became the University Union president of Kerala University Union president also. And we organized many discussions. And one seminar was organized, which B.K. Kn Ramachandran, defense minister, was there. And I gave a speech there, and B.K. Kn Ramachandran said, "You are a communist revolutionary." So he commented. I said, "Yes, but you are different from other communists." I said, "There is maybe some difference, because we are young people, so we want social change." So he said, "Okay, go ahead." So he slapped on my back, and said, so he laughed. So that way, we were leading the struggles, and we were taking position. So in 1961, when I passed out of engineering college, then at that time, immediately engineers were in very much high demand. So before the results came, we were appointed by the Kerala government. But I was not satisfied. I was in a office. It was a big change. So I was actually feeling very uneasy. Though it is help, I could help the family, but I was very uneasy. Then I said I should go out. I should see India. Because I had not only gone to Chennai once, but I had not gone India. So I should. So it is better to get a job outside. So I got a invitation to neighborly lignite corporation. So I took the job and resigned this job. Resigned this job and went to lignite corporation. So I became an engineer in lignite corporation. And I was there for 6 months. So there was an exposure to this thing. At that time, Russian, Soviet engineers were there and others were there. And lignite corporation's beginning. A lot of activity. Tens of thousands of workers were there. So we could interact with many people. And we were discussing with so many people. And so that was a good atmosphere. But at that time I got there was an interview for Border Roads Organization. Constructing roads in the Himalayas. Better wages, better pay, good payment. So I thought good payment, I can help the family more. But I can see the India. So I appeared for the interview and I was selected. And I became the engineering Border Roads Organization. And I was first appointed to Bhutan. And along with the army, it was a general reserve engineer force, Border Roads Organization. 50%, more than 50% the army officers, 50% civilian officers. We were also having uniform and other things. And then most of the employees there will be civilians, but with a uniform. So that was a semi-military arrangement. So when we started working there, I just plunged into that work. So I was very much interested. Going to raw Himalayas, constructing roads there, drilling the hills and blasting and clearing and making the roads. It was a good adventurous thing. So I was there. And good climate, changing climate, everything. So I was in Bhutan. And at that time, I started having this differences with my military officers. So they were very, not only their lifestyle, the culture, and the officers' mess is there. We are all officers' mess. So the way they behave to the subordinates, and not only that. So we got some news about this. Started getting some news about the corruption taking place. Not in the field areas, advanced areas, but in the back areas. How corruption is taking place. And in 62, it was in 61, 62 the border war took place.
Border war.
So I was in the advanced area in Bhutan, near Tashiko. That is very, as a crow flies, it is only 20 kilometers to Tibet. And this thing, Tawang, this Arunachal Pradesh, there was a big important area. It's very connected to Tashigong. From Tashigong to that area, there is a mule track. Road was not there, mule track was there. And there was a big military formation of India, which was actually attacked by, when the Chinese army advanced, they started running away. And so we were given the task to collect all the people in Tashigong and send them up to Tashigong. We had a small road now, and to send all these people to India by road, because military officers were prevented by the king, because now China started advancing their army, so no Indian army military people should be there in this thing. Civilians can be there. So as civilians, we were given the full responsibility to evacuate the Indian army. So we were evacuating the Indian army. At the time we had a officers mess at that time, Tashigong. So all these, many of these people were coming. And then we had opportunity to interaction. And how then some of them were very critical. The whole thing, they went in Arunachal, tried to advance the army through some roads, but there was no road. Road was in the map. but road was not constructed. Huge corruption was there. The whole army top leadership was conspired in this corruption. So a lot of complaints were there, and so there are no preparations and other thing. And when Chinese advanced, we had to run away. And all these things they were saying. Then I started asking them, what is this question? Then they started saying, it is the Manmohan line. And some people said, Manmohan line is a line prepared during British time. We could have discussed with China. And some even army people said, army officers said, we could have discussed with China. So that we will try to take some advanced positions. So naturally, the problem happened. But before that, actually, the Dalai Lama question was there. Dalai Lama question was there, and Dalai Lama was allowed to come to India with a lot of diamonds and gold. About hundreds of big horses carried this plunder wealth from the India. Thought that they will get it, but the arrangements were there with CIA and other things. So whatever wealth came with Dalai Lama, they were actually inherited from India.
Oh.
And Dalai Lama invested in the Western banks and other things. So it was not handed over to India. But anyway, India was actually giving them. So that was actually the provocation for the India-China war. And not only that, India was not ready to have a new approach towards Manmohan line, a line which was adopted by the British imperialists. At that time itself, India and China had agreed for a discussion to settle the problem. But instead of settling the problem, with the provocation of American imperialism, we were trying to make an advanced policy. That also led to the war. So I got so many ideas, and then I started getting some books later. And so on that question, our position was we were having a position that it was a India government's policy which led to this thing. Mainly, India-China war, there was a book later. So that book substantiated this position. But the question I was asking, at that time, there was no other communist comrades to talk with. And there was no telephone or anything to contact with other people, like mobile and other things. So no communication was possible. So I was thinking, according to my Marxist understanding, even if Indian government as a reactionary government committed a mistake, why China is fighting for a border? We are fighting for world revolution. So borders should disappear. And the border war will create tension between the two people. It will affect the Communist Party development. So I was not happy. China, legally, China was correct. But that is not the question. It is not legal, it is politics. When you are working for world revolution, why should you fight for border wars?
Yeah,
that is nationalism then. So is China's Communist Party influenced by nationalism? By the time, one important thing I missed, by the time after 56, when the Soviet Union had taken the position, Khrushchev's line came. In our struggle against the CPI leadership, we had started criticizing the Khrushchev leadership also. And especially, there was a big bookstall in Trivandrum, Prabhat bookstall. And after this Khrushchev line came, there were many books of Stalin and photos of Stalin. The management and the people who were responsible for running the bookstall, maybe definitely with the instructions from the top, they removed all Stalin's books. And many Stalin's books were burnt, and all the photos were burnt. So we came to know about it. So we had to criticize at that time this thing. How do you do that thing? So then, because I started reading Mao and the Chinese Communist Party's criticism and other thing, we were getting from here and there some knowledge, and bourgeois newspapers also giving. So we came to understanding, even before 61 itself, that Russia has degenerated and Chinese Communist Party is taking a better position. But when this border war, that also we had some disappointment. I had personally, because at that time there was no method of communication. And so after joining these border wars, I came to Kerala only in 63. After a gap of 1.5 years. So many things were happening. There was a struggle within the CPI.
Mm.
And then Tenali conference had taken place.
Yeah.
It was going to, CPI was going to be formed. Then I took the position that I supported, because when there are local comrades and others met me and we discussed the question. I said, I am taking the position of against CPI leadership.
Mm.
I supported the position of the emerging CPM leadership. But all these questions I discussed with them. So I was there for 1 month, and during that time I discussed all these questions with the people whom I met and with some of the old comrades also. All these things are there, so many important things are happening. We should take a position.
Mm.
So when I went back, so I had more time. So some more books I had taken. I got down to Calcutta and went to the market and purchased many books.
Mm.
And by that time, 63, that some more, the general line documents had not come, but some other documents had come. And so many writings of American, this Edgar Snow, William Hinton, all these writings are there. I purchased about 30-40 books, and I took it to this thing. And then when the military officers are saying, what are you doing it? What are you studying? And it is my private thing. I want to study all these things. Okay. So I carried my study, and I started translating some of these important things also.
Oh, you are translating.
And so I said that a lot of things are happening. I was also not very clear what is the line, what is the orientation. But one thing was there, Soviet Union has degenerated. And China is giving a better position. But in China also, this border war shows a nationalist approach.
Yeah.
So how to approach the Chinese question. So we said, let us study more, because there is nobody to discuss with. And then 65, I again went for leave. And by that time I was fed up with the border wars. It is meaningless to work with this army. So I decided, 4 years contract was completed.
Oh.
So I left border roads, and by the time the Bhutan Public Service Department, Works Department said, you become an engineer here, executive engineer. So I got the job there. So I was a division engineer there. So I took the job, and I went home. The family said marriage. So I was very impressionistic. On marriage I had not clear ideas. And all these things were happening. So actually I committed a mistake that way. Because all these things were happening within my mind, and the revolt was taking place. I had to go to the communist revolutionary movement. That thinking I was there. But when I found I was taken to a girl's house, and I met her and talked to her. I forget to tell her all these things. So actually she did not get that is her criticism even now. That I am having this type of thinkings and other thing, I did not tell her. Progressive, okay, but I am having these radical thinkings. I did not tell her. That is still she is having the complaint. So marriage took place. After marriage, I took her also to Bhutan. We had I started a family life there, and I was, but I was reading more, and I was trying to translate more. And then the participated and the 66 developments, famine, then the food riots, and 67 Naxalbari uprising. So we were very near.
Very close.
Bhutan is on the border of Bengal.
Bengal.
North Bengal. And so we were getting the news through other workers also. We were having a large number of workers, Nepali workers and the workers of the foothills. So we were knowing all these things, and sometimes we used to go to foothill area, meet some people, and that way I was inquisitive, so I was getting information. So that way Naxalbari uprising took place. Then I thought I should go to Bengal to understand this thing, how to go. And then there was an interview for Farakka Barrage. The Central Water Power Commission called for an interview, engineer in Farakka Barrage. So I will get less money, my monetary benefits will be reduced. and it is only a assistant engineer post. I took that post. I went for interview, I got the selection. Naturally, because I had so much experience. So I got the post and I went to Faraka. Faraka is in the Murshidabad districts and it's very close to Bangladesh border. And it is about 200 kilometers from Calcutta. So when I reached Faraka, actually the revolt was taking place everywhere. It was in 68 I reached there.
That is
68 I reached there.
very
And within a short time I started, I was very inquisitive, so I had some addresses and other things. So that way I established some contacts.
yeah.
And my family was there. So later I sent my family home. And my house became a shelter for the communist revolutionaries as the party was formed and other thing. So in that discussion I took the position supporting the party formation.
Oh.
Because without a party you cannot fight. Without a party you cannot fight. But when the line came, and so many sort of discussion was there, because I became very, everybody knew that I am a, not CPI, CPM, I am an Naxalite. Everybody knew. But even among the engineers, including the general manager, everybody knew that I am a, because I was openly talking all these things in the discussions and other things. There was a engineers association, discussions and other things. I was openly talking about many of these things, communist ideas and other things. So I was considered as a, and then CPI, CPM were very angry, especially CPM. And CPM people started looking at me antagonistically.
Oh.
So I was, some of them tried to isolate me also. So that all these things are taking place. So I started going to people and discussing another thing. So there was a Dipankar Chakravarti. He was editor of the Anik, a publication from Bengal. And he was at that time professor of Murshidabad College. And I got contact with him through one of my Bakchi, I forgot his name. Bakchi was another engineer with me. So he was also communist oriented. So we became a small group in Faraka, engineers group who was supporting Naxalites. And this Bakchi's elder brother was I will recall the name. He's a famous Bakchi who is later became the vice chairman of the Planning Commission in this thing. He's an author also. He has written so many books on economics and other things. And so through this Bakchi I met his elder brother. We had discussions and other things. So he was taking a pro-CPM line, so I was taking a CPM line. Then he said, you better bet Dipankar Chakravarti. So I went to Dipankar Chakravarti and he was getting the broadsheet. There was a publication from London. So through broadsheet I got the literature on Cultural Revolution. Cultural Revolution in China by Joanne Robinson. And so much I collected all these things. I started reading. And I started reading. For convenience I sent my family home. She got a child. So I said this is better. So I was free that way. So and started translating things, studying things, contacting, establishing secret contacts. So, but at the same time I was not happy with the way things were developing. I thought it is how can this line be correct? Party formation is correct. But is party doing a correct thing? So these questions were coming in my mind. And I discussed with Dipankar. So Dipankar was also sharing that position. He was anti-Charmendra. I was pro-Charmendra. I said Charmendra has given a good big contribution. His contribution which led to Naxalbari uprising. And his contribution in forming the party. These are contributions for which we have to respect him. But the line followed by the party, I had doubts. So Dipankar said,